Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. Hey, what's up, everybody? So by the time you start listening to this, I will already be on the road to a backpacking adventure. So I will basically be off the grid today and tomorrow. Now, I will periodically be able to check my emails and stuff like that while I'm there, but it's not going to be a big priority. So I'll try and get back to the emails that are sent to me while I'm there, as quickly as possible, but bear with me a few days because I'm going to try and be as unconnected as possible while I'm out here doing some adventuring. So there will be one new episode today, and there will be one new episode tomorrow. Now, there will also be several flashbacks each day, so that way you folks still get your fix, still get a couple of episodes in there, and we keep the train rolling, right? Now, I'll be home Thursday, and like I said, I have a little surprise in store for everybody, so we will get to that after this little adventure, though, one thing at a time. So this morning, what we're going to talk about is a topic that should have already been changed. What we're going to talk about in this article, this is a law that should have been fixed a long time ago in France. And what we're talking about here is the age of consent. Now, you all know how I feel about looking out from my backyard and into my neighbor's yard and talking trash when I have a whole yard full of garbage myself. But when it comes to this situation here, the age of consent, and how people in France have manipulated it for a long time, I think that it is nothing but a positive step for the authorities in France to start to address something like this. I mean, if not now, then when? So it's certainly refreshing to see that they're taking it more seriously, and they're going to take a look at setting the age for consent at 15 in France. Now, I know that seems like a very low number to a lot of us in America especially, but you got to start somewhere, right? And if this is the foot in the door for France, then all right. Because what people can get away with there as of now is pretty dastardly and very concerning for anybody who is worried about people who are being sexually abused and children being human trafficked and abused by people like this. It's a very concerning situation when there are no real stringent laws to govern something like this. Because we all know that there are sick, disgusting bastards out there who will take advantage of loopholes in the law and abuse these young girls and act like it's okay. Again, full circle, it all comes back to the politicians no matter where you live. If it's America, if it's Mars, or if it's Russia. The scumbag politicians have to be forced to do the right thing, and they have to be forced to put laws on the books that have teeth, that protect the most vulnerable amongst us. I don't know how we can call ourselves civilized societies if we don't even protect the most vulnerable amongst us. All right, so our article this morning is from ABC News, and the headline is, "Finally, France seeks to set age for sexual consent at 15. I mean, again, I'm trying not to be too critical of France and their laws. I don't live there. I don't know them well enough to really sit here and, break down each and every aspect of their legal system the way I can in America. So I'm not even going to fake the funk. But even putting the age at 15 is a bit spine-tingling to me. And I get it. Progress is slow. and a lot of times you got to walk before you can run. And I understand that French society is a lot different than society in America, especially when it comes to this sort of thing. But it is very shocking for people on the outside looking in to take a look at the age at 15 like this and not think it's a little funky. Now, there's gray area when you're talking about, say, an 18 or 19-year-old, right? Gray area. You can have a discussion about, did they know each other in high school? All kinds of different things. But when we're talking about what we're talking about here, very rich, very powerful men and women abusing the most vulnerable and 30, 40 years their junior in some instances, then we have a whole different type of problem at our fingertips, and a whole different type of problem that needs to be discussed. And while I think it's certainly a step in the right direction for France to at least get a baseline here for what the age of consent is, I'd like to see more. I'd like to see France get a little bit more proactive here, and I'd like to see their politicians demand that there's a real age of consent here, because 15 seems a bit low to me. Now again, I'm not from France, right? So I try not to act like I know exactly what's going on in society there. But from the people I have talked to, some of the independent content creators and otherwise that are based in France, it seems like a lot of the population certainly is in favor of an age of consent. This article was authored by Angela Charlton, and it originally appeared in the Associated Press, but we're reading it off of ABC News. This article was published on February 10th, 2021. I don't know how I missed this one. Usually these ones pop right up and I add them to the pile so we can get to them, but somehow I missed this one until just recently. So here we are. France's government wants to set the age of sexual consent at 15 and make it easier to punish long-ago child sexual abuse amid growing public pressure and a wave of online testimonies about rape and other sexual violence by parents and authority figures. That shit is chilling, man. And, we don't talk about it a lot on this podcast because we're talking about one case in particular. But a lot of this sexual violence does happen in the home, and most of it happens from somebody that these girls or boys know. So it's a big problem around the world, certainly not just in America, and certainly not just in France. And we need to make sure that we're holding people responsible if they're abusing the most vulnerable amongst us, the youngest amongst us, those who have not had any, time to really live life or know right from wrong. These are the people that need to be rounded up, and these are the people that need to face the music. And as far as statutes of limitation, when we're talking about actual rape and this kind of thing, that needs to be looked at. Every single case needs to be unique, in my opinion. And if the evidence is there, and there's actual evidence, then I don't think it should matter how long ago it was. If you have tangible evidence, physical evidence, eyewitness testimony, then I think that's enough. Now, if there's no evidence and, it's he said, she said, then obviously that's a different situation. But when you have something this pervasive and so many people are coming forward and so many people are saying that this occurred, well, I think that a special look should be had. Finally was the refrain Wednesday from survivors and child protection activists who have long pushed for tougher laws and greater societal recognition of the problem. That's definitely an issue. Society needs to recognize this issue. One of the things is it's a very uncomfortable subject to talk about, and it's even more uncomfortable to research it. So I understand why society as a whole kind of, looks the other way. Until it's shoved in front of their face, most people don't want to think about this shit. And guess what? I was most people. I didn't want to think about this abuse, this rampant abuse to children and women and boys. And who wants to think about this? Who wants to exist in a world where this occurs? Certainly not me. But sometimes, like in the Matrix, when you eat that red pill, there is no going back. And now that the door has been opened, I think it would be absolutely disgusting on my part to not recognize the problem and not to do whatever part that I can to make sure that this stuff does not occur in the future. And I feel like for me, my little part is to bring some light to some of these issues that maybe aren't getting that much coverage. And once I crack that door open a little, all of you who are out there listening to the show, you guys, dig in, you kick in the door and you start digging deeper. And that's how all of this stuff works, right? So it's about time that people are taking note of this. And I think it's a worthy discussion to have. If we're going to talk about such, mundane things as steroids and baseball in Congress, then I think stuff like this most certainly warrants a look. France's lack of an age of consent, along with statutes of limitations, have complicated efforts to prosecute alleged perpetrators, including a prominent modeling agent, a predatory priest, a surgeon, and a group of firefighters accused of systematic sexual abuse. It sounds like some kind of terrible joke, right? So a modeling agent, a predatory priest, a surgeon, and a group of firefighters accused of systematic sexual abuse walk into a bar. I mean, holy cow, folks. It shows you that this is occurring at every single walk of life. And most of us are walking around in a cloud, not even recognizing what's going on. Calling such treatment of children intolerable, the Justice Ministry said the government is determined to act quickly to implement the changes that our society expects. So that definitely bodes well. If the Justice Ministry themselves are saying this, and they're going to be proactive, and they're going to look to push the envelope here and make the changes that are necessary, then I think that is a very, very good thing. Because like I said, speaking to the few people in France that I know and the few content creators that I know that are from France, they certainly say that the people of France are sick of this shit too. That the average folk, like everywhere else, are sick of the predator class, aka the so-called elite, acting in a predatory manner towards our children, the most vulnerable amongst us, to everybody who they consider less than. An act of sexual penetration by an adult on a minor under 15 will be considered a rape, Justice Minister Eric Dupond-Moretti said Tuesday on France 2 television. Perpetrators could no longer cite consent to diminish the charges, he said, though exceptions would be made for teenagers having consensual sex. I think that's proper. Again, teenagers that are having consensual sex, a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old, I think that there's a lot of gray area there. And we all know that teenagers are, let's be real, pretty stupid. So I think it's a good idea to not have one absolute law over everything. You have to look at each situation in a unique manner, right? But when it comes to these old-ass men, these gross-ass, disgusting-ass, decrepit-ass, physically disgusting-ass mofos, well, these people need to be held to account for what they're doing. They know exactly what's going on. They're out here grooming these girls, buying them gifts, this, that, and the other thing. They have one purpose in mind, and that's to sexually assault and manipulate these girls through the grooming process. Meanwhile, the 19-year-old knucklehead, well, we all know the deal there, right? We all know what the 19-year-old's looking for. The change still needs to be enshrined in law, but the announcement is a major step. Now, with everything else when it comes to lawmakers, Let's see what they have to say. Let's see what they do. Let's see if the French, I guess, Parliament, I don't know, whatever it's called, let's see what they have to say about all of this, and let's see if they have the backbone to initiate it and to make sure that it has teeth. The world is certainly watching. It's very good that there is this revived debate, that there is an idea of a minimum age of consent, said Fatima Benamar, whose group, Les Affrontis, has pushed for stronger laws against sexual abusers. This will make adults more responsible. Hey, whoa, what do you know about that, huh? Responsibility for adults? Come on, this is the year 2021. I thought that went out the window. I thought it's society's problem and there's no more self-responsibility. Refreshing to see that people are actually saying, hey, you have to be responsible for your actions. I know, it's such a novel idea, but you would think that in the year 2021, we would all be at the same point to know that we're responsible ultimately for the things that we do. An effort to set France's first age of consent 3 years ago in the wake of the global Metoo movement failed amid legal complications. Let me break that down for you. It failed because the elite of France didn't want to give up their predatory nature. Unfortunately, that's what it was. What, you don't think they were pressuring the politicians? And the politicians, for their part, how many sick bastards are amongst them? I'm sure many, folks. So it's no shock to me that it failed the first time around. But it has gained new momentum since accusations emerged last month of incestuous sexual abuse involving a prominent French political expert, Olivier Duhamel, that unleashed an online Metoo incest movement in France that led to tens of thousands of similar testimonies. All right, hang on, pump the brakes. Tens of thousands of similar testimonies? What in the hell is going on in France? There's that much incest going on here? I mean, we have that many people with Habsburg jaws running around at this point? What in the hell, France? Tens of thousands? That's really disturbing, folks, honestly, all kidding aside. And it goes to show you that it's a pervasive problem in France and elsewhere, and it's about time that the French authorities start to take notice of this. But be very vigilant and take a look at what prompted all of this. It was the backlash from the people, aka you. So when I say one gnat doesn't mean shit, but 10 million gnats can drown people, this is exactly what I mean. When we get together and we demand stuff like this as citizens, they have to take notice. The Justice Ministry is in discussions with survivor groups about toughening punishment of incestuous abuse and extending or abolishing the statute of limitations on sexual violence against children because it creates such deep trauma that it can take decades for survivors to speak out. The law currently allows child victims to file complaints until they are 48. Wow. All of that is just so disturbing. And the fact that it takes so long for a lot of these people to come out and speak about the trauma that they went through just goes to the fact that there are so many girls and women that were abused by Jeffrey Epstein that still haven't come to grips with it, that still have not come forward. And that really disturbs me. It's one of the most disturbing chapters of this whole entire story, in my opinion. The ministry also says it wants to ensure that survivors of the same perpetrator do not receive different legal treatment, which could broaden the scope to prosecute those accused of abusing multiple people over decades. So they want to make sure it's uniformed. They want to make sure if someone's getting the book thrown at them, that it is a uniformed process. And it's about time that France gets their house in order in this regard, in my opinion. It's been a very long time coming, in my opinion. Legal time limits have hampered French authorities' ability to investigate an influential cardinal, Philippe Barbarin, convicted then acquitted of covering up for a predatory priest. Modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel, an associate of disgraced late U.S. financier, pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein, accused of an array of sex crimes, and surgeon Joël La Scornec, convicted after accusations he sexually abused more than 300 children over decades, as well as other less prominent cases. And we see it in America, too. We see it with Michigan State, the athletic trainer from Michigan State. We've seen it at Ohio State in the wrestling room. And how many other situations have we seen that are very similar to situations just like this? So again, this is not an American problem. This is not a French problem. This is not just an English problem. This is a world problem. And all of us together have to stand tall before the wagon and demand that these sons of bitches are held responsible. One of Brunel's alleged survivors, former model Physique Housman, welcomed the proposed reform, even though it's too late for her to seek justice for the rape she says she suffered as a teenager. And while Physique can't physically get the justice for herself that she deserves, I hope that she gets justice vicariously through these other girls who are coming forward, and ultimately through the prosecution and conviction of Jean-Luc Brunel. It feels empowering, and that's really important, she said. I thought nothing was ever going to change. Housman came forward and testified to police in hopes of eliciting change and encouraging other alleged survivors to speak out. It's really important to me as a victim, a survivor, that we came forward as a group, she said, and she was not wrong about that. Look, I remember when Physique first came forward, very bravely. And it is the sort of thing that's needed. Somebody needs to pick up the mantle and lead the charge. And when it comes to these girls who have basically been forced to live in the shadows and live with what happened to them hanging over them for all of these years, it must be empowering to now emerge and snatch the narrative back and say, look, enough is enough. You've abused us for decades. Now we're going to take the center of the octagon. We're going to bite down on our mouthpiece, and we're going to come forward and throw bombs. And that's exactly what's going on here, folks, right? These dudes, meaning Epstein and all of his cohorts and all of his criminal associates, they dumped their gas tank in 2 rounds, and it was a rough 2 rounds, right? Battered and bruised. All kinds of situations where the fight was almost over. But it's a 5-round fight, isn't it? Got back to the stool, got a bit of attention, came back out for the 3rd round, the championship rounds on their way, and, well, took the initiative. And that's exactly what's going on right here and right now, as these survivors have had enough and they all band together to fight back. France's highest court considered a case Wednesday involving a woman who said multiple firefighters raped her when she was between the ages of 13 and 15. A lower court downgraded the charges to sexual assault, but her lawyers want them reclassified as rape. Yeah, if she was raped by these firefighters, then it should be classified as rape. Again, technicalities and loopholes, folks. I mean, how often do we have to see them? And obviously, once again, it's not just America that is plagued by this. Under current French law, sexual relations between an adult and a minor under 15 are banned. Yet the law accepts the possibility that someone under 15 is capable of consenting to sex, leading to cases where an adult is prosecuted for sexual assault instead of rape, and therefore faces a lighter prison sentence. You know, I don't have enough information on all of that to have a proper opinion. But if you're a 38-year-old dude, 27-year-old dude, 26-year-old dude, you shouldn't be messing around with a 15-year-old, in my opinion. There's really no gray area there from where I'm sitting. In the Duhamel case, the Paris prosecutor opened an investigation into alleged rapes and sexual abuses by a person exercising authority over a child following accusations in a book by his stepdaughter that he abused her twin brother in the 1980s when the siblings were in their early teens. And again, I don't know enough about this Duhamel case to really get into the weeds, But it's unfortunately the same MO and the same scenario we see play out over and over again, right? These people who were abused take decades in some cases to come out and build up the courage to speak out considering what they've been through. But once they get to that point, once they get over the hump and they reach the summit, they are unstoppable. And you see that with all of these brave survivors that have come forward and told their story. Duhamel, saying he was the target of personal attacks, stepped down from his many professional positions, including a TV commentator and head of National Foundation of Political Sciences. The foundation manages the prestigious sciences Po University in Paris, whose director, Frédéric Mignon, resigned this week amid the fallout from the affair, which entangled multiple people among France's elite. Well, that shouldn't shock anybody out there. It's not just one of these people, right, that's acting like this. As disturbing as it may be, this is obviously the accepted behavior in so-called polite society. This is how they all conduct themselves. So why should they act surprised or disgusted when one of their buddies are caught? Who knows what these scumbags are really doing behind the shadows, folks? We've just gotten a small little glimpse, right? Since the Duhamel accusation surfaced, searing accounts of alleged incestuous abuse filled social networks. This is disturbing shit right here. It's hard for me to fathom how anyone could look at a relative or a little child and be like, oh yeah, this is a good looking person. The revulsion that I feel even thinking about it. Other prominent figures in French cinema and politics have also been accused. The movement spawned an offshoot, #MeTooGayWave in France, of long-suppressed testimonies of sexual abuse by older men. Yeah, look, a lot of these abusers are sick-ass, gross-ass, old-ass men. And that's not even up for debate. Those are just the facts. And the abuse that occurs to young homosexual men is off the charts. Absolutely off the charts, and it's unacceptable. The World Health Organization says international studies show that 1 in 5 women and 1 in 13 men report having been sexually abused as a child. Those numbers are a gut punch and a reminder that there's a long way to go, folks, to make sure that people like these scumbags are held responsible. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at Bobbycapucci at protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI at protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All of the links for this episode can be found in the description box. All right, everybody, I will talk to you folks tomorrow, and I hope that you all have a fantastic day.